Hello, my name is Benny Ramos, and I'm pleased to be joining you today from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. As I begin, I'd like to ask you to think about the question, what percentage of modern work is performed at or near an internet-connected device? Whether it be a tablet, whether it be a cell phone, whether it be a computer. Think about this, and I will reveal the answer later. This question was posed by a person by the name of Elliot Macy, who came up with the term e-learning around 2013. Who am I? I currently want you to think about three things in respect to myself. Number one is I work with Skillsoft as a global solution practice leader for business and leadership skills. So I am prejudiced in saying that Skillsoft does many things well with respect to business and leadership, but many things I talk about today are technology and vendor agnostic. I used to lead a customer success team, which is around strategy, marketing, and measurement with many of our clients. And prior to working with Skillsoft, I used to be a client or a buyer. So hopefully I understand what it is like to look for partners and look for ways to work with learning products and services. So let us start off with this idea of digital transformation to set the stage. The ESB Business School in Austria actually talked about these technologies of AI, machine learning, blockchain, and big data. And really, these technologies in simple form help large organizations be agile, and small organizations compete with large organizations. This is something that we have heard of more recently because of COVID, but has its roots years ago. In simple form, what this deals with is the ability to unbundle, disintermediation, and decoupling. The example of unbundling is in music. I used to buy a whole album or cassette tape or CD. Now I can just buy a single song on iTunes or Google Play. With disintermediation, I think of the first time I traveled on vacation. I used a travel agent that booked everything from the hotel to the transportation between the hotel, my flight, activities, and food. And now I can go directly to the hotel or directly to the airline and use the flexibility for my own personal experience. And lastly, decoupling. Legislation was around to ensure the protection of the customer, and you could only go to certain institutions for banking services and insurance services and investment services. Today, I can choose to do this whichever way I want, with whoever I want. So the customer experience has been transformed and the expectation is different than it was previously. From a business perspective, as suppliers and as organizations, we know that digital transformation or employing AI, machine learning, blockchain, robotics, and the like yields profits that are generally 26% more than those who have not. What's puzzling is only 46% of companies are investing in these skills. Why is this of concern today? The World Economic Forum has actually indicated that 1 out of every 6 jobs is at a large risk of change due to these technologies and automation. Now, putting this into terms that can be easily understood, using one industry, the hospitality industry, for example, this robotic arm, which is pictured and was used in Caliburger, for example, in California, widely deployed in Japan, would use things like AI and machine learning to determine if the food is cooked, robotics for the arm, big data to ensure that the load on this grill is being properly used. But these machines are expensive. On the other side, these machines never take a break, never take a vacation, and are easily repaired. So if you think of this technology over the next 24 months in Japan alone, could replace up to 483,000 jobs. The good news when we think of technology is that a third of the jobs that could be replaced can be filled with upskilling and reskilling. For example, one of the job titles that's very frequent today in a data scientist did not even exist 6 or 7 years ago, and now it's very, very popular. A person who is a database analyst using SQL may have the technical capabilities to upskill and reskill easily to have a job as a data analyst, a data wrangler, or a data scientist. The idea here is the common language and fluency around these technologies is what will make sure that people are not just partially employed, but as we go further, fully employed. We know that COVID has caused some unemployment and some partial employment. And today, as far as organizations goes, having a common understanding of these technologies will help demolish silos and also improve organizational performance. In the long run, when we think of the fact that this is not just a short-term issue with COVID, we are having a long-term issue when we think of the idea that we're living longer, so we'll have more careers. In fact, the World Economic Forum has indicated that over 60% of the job roles we will be doing in 2030 have not yet even been created yet. In fact, the CLO of TD Bank has indicated that the number of careers a person may have is up to 27 careers. When we think back to what Cisco, for example, had thought would be the most important capability of 2020, the year we're in today, you will see that in all the world regions that they operate, number one is career development and learning and development. This is also very pertinent when we think of the future work skills forecasted for this year with the University of Arizona, who talked about a computational world. They talked about the extreme longevity as we live longer. And they talked about these superstructured organizations. Just another way of saying digital transformation. And if we think of last year, many organizations had planned over the next 3 to 5 years to spend much of their budgets in using digital transformation to improve economic performance and improve efficiency. But guess what? COVID had come and the future is now. Gartner will say that over the last 3 to 5 months, many organizations have actually invested their budget for the last 3 to 5 years. And this is something that is of concern because in the past, it was all about efficiency, but now it is about safety and it is about business continuity. This is a big opportunity for us when we think of COVID, not just for our external customers, but for our internal customers and learners. These learners today are having stress and issues because of this new idea of remote work. If we look at the most popular articles from MIT Sloan Management Review, we will see many are about virtual teams, and one in particular from Linda Grattan, which I've circled, is around helping employees work from home with kids. So they have stressors, they have time issues, but even with that, they're concerned about their future employability. From Skillsoft, we have actually seen a 351% increase in the learning content that is accessed since January, because people want to be fully employed and they want to be employed. How do we make sure that they have the skills for the future within our organizations? This T-shaped model talks about a deep understanding in the expertise that we are associated with. It could be sales, it could be HR, it could be technology, but in order for us to be collaborative and more efficient with the rest of our organization and be fully employed, we should have a broad understanding in other technologies or other business practices. This was actually socialized by Jim Safor of IBM almost 20 years ago, but it's very pertinent today. It's not just the technology that we have to think about, because without training people and having individuals to work that technology, you cannot leverage the technology properly. This has actually been commented on by Josh Berzin in November of last year, talking again about this T-shaped employee. And if we look at the evidence from IBM themselves, I analyzed 75 articles in 2019, 75 positions in 2019. And these job postings that were technology related, over 42% of the actual requirements were business skills and hard certification skills like project management, negotiation skills, and presentation skills. So that balance is required. Even today, when we think of the fact that there's 2 million cybersecurity openings, and Skillsoft ourselves has done 2 million hours of the learning delivery within technology over the last while, the most accessed or the most requested content by many IT leaders is around virtual teams. I was participating in a digital executive conference with many CIOs and CTOs, and we can see that their number one concern was actually around lagging morale and also engagement due to COVID. And this is, again, commented on many articles around the most important leadership skill around the distance that we can close from remote work. And also the idea that the skills required for today are all around communication, actionable intelligence, adaptability. So leadership is important. What do we know today? From a leadership development perspective, these truths that I show on the screen, we can see one of the biggest ones at the very top is that reach yesterday in prior years around leadership is very limited, where today it is more democratized for a number of reasons. Not least of which, when we think of COVID, many leaders are more mature. And at any time, whether you mature or not, you could be exposed to something like COVID or some type of illness that would make you less available. The other piece is when it comes to leadership in your organization, if you can have a larger number of people developed within your organization with distributed decision-making, you can be more agile with respect to the decisions that are made, as well as more customer ready. A person by the name of Mitch Joel wrote a book called 6 Pixels of Separation. And he noted today, there are up to 110 interactions a leader is called on to act on. It could be a phone call, it could be a text, it could be an email. And again, if we can distribute that decision-making over a larger portion of the organization, you can be more agile and more efficient. The type of leadership we require today is more like this example that I'm showing. Defton Legel had written a big book called Fusion, and the leadership is more like a conductor. The conductor does not tell the horn section how to play the horns. He just makes sure that they are aligned with the other horn players and in concert building the right team of horn players. The idea here is the building of the network. This article or this image is from Harold Yarkey of the Internet Time Alliance. And it is around the idea that we've gone from hierarchies to leading networks, not just people, but people and machines to machines. So leadership today is leading the output of the network and requires different mindsets than we had in the past. The changing nature of work is different because not only do we find ourselves no longer co-located because of COVID perhaps, but when we have dispersed teams, these are probably mission-driven teams, more temporal teams, and teams that have different skill sets, not just one skill set, where we have people that are designers and part who are analysts and part who are creative. And in nature, the whole team is very different than it was in the past. When we want to engage, this is the idea here in terms of us as a driver, Kevin Kruse wrote a book called We, and in the articles within the book, he notes that engaged organizations are probably 10 to 12% more productive and have 3% less absenteeism. Organizations like Aon Hewitt have indicated that the top drivers for engagement in today's world are number one, work-life balance, and number two, career development and employee development, because again, employees are concerned about their future employability and being fully employed. When we try to teach people and have them learning, the framework we have to think about is their consumer-based tendencies today. They know what Netflix is, and they know what a channel is, but they may not know what a curricula is. They know what a playlist is because they use Google Play and iTunes, but they may not know, again, what a training program is. And they certainly know what it's like to shop online and easily have rating and ranking of products. Do our programs incorporate all of these types of ideas when it comes to learning and development? The answer to the question I posed earlier, what percentage of modern work performed at or near an internet connected device? It's actually between 83 and 87%, depending on where you are globally. The loaded question is, what percentage of modern work is at or near the classroom? It's probably only 3%. So the choice is clear. If you want learning and development that is scalable, it is going to be affordable, and it's going to have a consistent message, using technology is going to be a very good key to you having a program that will engage most individuals. Another aspect we have to think about from Josh Burson, as pictured on the screen, is that the average learner only allocates about 1% of their work week to learning and development, or about 24 minutes. Do we have learning that can fit within that time frame? At Skillsoft, what we had done to ensure that learning and development was most effective was we partnered with MIT and also the McGovern Institute to actually do brain science to see how the most effective learning could be conducted. We used fMRI to track what parts of the brain were being activated, and EEG to see how strong the activation was. And what we found were interesting things like the rate of speech that you could accept information at. And most important, when we found these people from Accenture over a 2-year period taking training in this apparatus, is we found that showing people what good looks like with scenarios, not just telling people what good looks like, was most effective. So when you think of this modern learning formula, there are a few pieces here to point out. First of all, do you have micro or modular content that can be consumed in short bursts for that busy learner? Also, do you have varied treatments like experts speaking, as well as scenarios or showing people what good looks like? What does a good conversation look like? What does a good feedback look like? And lastly, at the very bottom, the idea of mobile. Many individuals, over 51%, according to Harvard, have indicated that they like to consume information on a mobile device. And in fact, many have said an iPhone. Do your learning assets play or show on a mobile device? This is some information from a Vansenborn study that we performed in Asia Pacific. And really what it's saying is that 90% of employees wish their employer offered new skills training. It's not that they were not getting training, it's just the fact that they were getting training that is not focused on the future. And they wanted to have more diverse sets of learning. At Skillsoft, we provide videos, reading, listening, and practicing assets. And in closing, I just want to point out an example historically. Cortez, an explorer, was traveling from Spain to India and actually bumped into Mexico. He tried to create a fort, and the sailors who were building the fort were behind schedule. He asked why, and they said, we were keeping supplies back on the boat in case we failed and we had to go back to Spain. When they woke the next morning, the boats were burning. And my proposition to you is if your learning program and content is not as engaging as Facebook and YouTube and other media that your learners are accessing daily, those are the things that are burning your boats. You have to make sure your content is appealing. In closing, the hopeful world as we emerge from COVID is that the most digitally dexterous country in the world, noted by Gartner, was India, followed by the UK, followed by the United States. Why? They gauged the willingness of the population to learn digital and leadership skills. And this is commented on by Mark Cuban, who's indicated the ultimate skill that we can teach our kids is learning does not stop today. It is a lifelong skill that we all need to keep. And this is something that we want to support our team members with upskilling and reskilling. Thank you very much for your time.
Benny さん、セッションありがとうございました。
Benny, thank you very much for the session.
You're very welcome.
はい。皆さん、もしご質問あるようでしたら、
So, audience, if you have any questions, please post them onto the chat. Thank you.
その前に私の方から、
But before that, I would like to ask you a question.
はいプレゼンテーションの中で、
In a presentation, you mentioned that career and jobs are going to be increasing and the necessary skills will be increasing accordingly.
我々としては
But
どんどん増えていくキャリアやスキルに
the increasing careers and skills, how can we catch up with them? If you have any ideas, please share that with us.
Okay. So two things I will say. One is that many of the things we focus on are around technology, but we should be focusing on the people skills to ensure that those who run the technology have the skills they need. The OECD in 2019 had indicated that Japan in particular had a very, very strong technology infrastructure, but only about 46% of the people, the workers, were comfortable working with the technology. And this could be anything from AI and blockchain and machine learning, or simple like how to make a video or how to write for the web. It's different this way. The second thing I would say is that the idea of that T-shaped employee, whatever we have from a business perspective, if we're a salesperson, if we are HR, if we're an operational person, to make sure that across the top, the broad skills that we learn are again around this digital transformation and digital skills. Understanding a little bit about how AI and machine learning can meet our customers' needs.
Thank you. Right. So I suppose in the past, we were going after single skills, but now we're going after a more broader range of skills. Broader skills will be necessary. Thank you.
Yes,
and we have
absolutely.
another question coming in. Let's ask the question. Regarding DX, digital transfer, the Human Resource Department, in tackling digital transformation, is there something human resources needs to give priority to?
Yes. So two things. First is the same technology we use to serve our customers externally. We have to acknowledge that our employees expect internally. So when we think of perhaps responding to questions, they are using chatbots. They're using automation to have their problems solved when they go to the store or they go to a retailer, the same thing they expect inside from an HR perspective. The second thing, and most important, HR revolves around data and understanding data bias and understanding how to not only identify problems, but project future problems using data is going to be key. So data-based decision-making and perhaps background when we think of tools like R or Python will be useful.
はい。ありがとうございます。やはり、データを集めてどう活かしていくか
Thank
というの
you.
も重要。
So to gather the data and how to make good use of them will be important. I understand your point. Thank you. And then I would like to move over to the next question. Say the training using technology, for example, like a video.
Mhm.
It seems like those are in a greater need, but the employees who are not accustomed to such kind of tools may be remaining in a very big volume still. So if they were interested, to make them interested in such kind of a contents, do you have any tips for that?
Yes. So with video-based training, there are obvious advantages with respect to consistency and repeatability that we might not get with instructor-led training in a classroom. And in fact, it might be safer today in our COVID environment. What we want to do when we think of video training is three things. Number one is make sure that the content is able to be consumed in short bursts. We know that there are longer courses and longer assets available, but people are used to watching YouTube videos, which are quite short. That's the first thing. The second thing is with respect to the content, that if there is ability to have some interaction in between, short quizzes, short questions, or reflection questions, that will be useful. And lastly is if there is ability to have practice, some sort of practice time after, the sooner that a person is able to practice, the more ability for them to retain this information. So this could be practicing with a teammate. This could be practicing by writing out. This could be practicing by reflecting on the content themselves. So again, it is going to help retain the content.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you so much. So not only the contents themselves, but including the follow-up after the session will be important. Yes, that's the point that I have learned from your comments. And this might be maybe the last question or so, but the technology has been laying the learning environment for us, but to motivate many employees to do the upskilling and reskilling, do you have any idea as how we can motivate them? If you have any special cases, that would be appreciated.
So when it comes to motivating the employee, there are probably two sides. Number one is the company side. If we can tell the employee how learning a certain skill or learning a certain mindset, it will contribute to the productivity or to the profitability of the company, the alignment will help engage them. That's number one. The second thing is the personal motivation that they have. We have already seen that there are many individuals who want to be, again, fully employed, or those who have been having to shift roles need to learn skills. So that motivation should be in the ability to have a greater satisfaction in their role and actually showcasing the instances where they can provide greater value to the organization. It is going to be motivating to be employed. So I think many people will take the interest of upskilling and reskilling themselves.
はい、いいアイデアありがとうござい
Thank
ま
you
す。
very much for the great idea
そうですね、やはりこういろんなチャンスをですね、提示するっていうのも
to offer them the various opportunities will be a great motivating factor.
ありがとうございます。他に
Thank you so
質問
much.
いただいてたんですけれど
And we have actually a number of questions still pending, but because the time has come, we would like to conclude here. Thank you very much, Benny, for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.